And we are live for episode 43 of the Black Stitch Hockey Cast. Lucky number 43, a little bit of Richard Petty energy there. Now, because, we're in the summer season and it's definitely his season more than it's our historic season. I love when my fighting a battle. There we go.
It's funny how the details of the goat head are like more easily identifiable in a mirrored image.
Yeah, it is really interesting because I honestly didn't even realize what their logo was. And I know this sounds really bad as somebody who has pretty good perception skills. I legitimately was not aware of what this logo actually was until they brought it back a couple years ago. Like, as a kid, I never really looked that closely at it and just kind of saw the horns and never really processed what this logo was.
Yeah, it's funny because like the way I saw it like as like a small child was like the tail end of it kind of looked more like the mouth to me, and like it kind of looked more like the eyes were on like the left hand side, but I guess. Uh, that was kind of the era for sort of ambiguous but cool sports designs, I feel like.
Oh, absolutely.
Not to say
We're
that hasn't kind of been going on for a long time, because one across like sports in general, because like one thing you'll notice is about the MLB logo, for instance, is you can perceive it as a righty or a lefty batter, which was pretty ingenious, I thought.
Oh, yeah. I mean, just I miss clever logo design. Um, and the NHL hasn't been horrible with it yet. Or like, I am very tired of the NBA and why the fuck is every logo in this league a fucking circle for the most part? Like, my God, why does every NBA logo why does every team feel the need to fit their logo in a fucking ball shape? Like, I get it. You're trying to be parallel with the ball, with like the item that you're playing the sport with, sure, but like, there's literally no room for, you know, why are we putting an entire league's worth of logos to a fucking template almost?
Yeah, I think of like, especially considering some of the downgrades, like the Ben Wallace era, like Detroit Pistons logo with like that flaming horse head looking thing, it kind of like giving that sort of Calgary Flames alternate logo vibes a bit. That was like legitimately sick, and they're just another like franchise that totally streamlined their aesthetic entirely.
Like, it's kind of nuts how the Chicago Bulls not doing anything to their logo really in the last 3 decades has left them with still a bland, but not nearly as bland as everybody else. Not to say, I mean, I can't really hold the Celtics accountable on this because their logo hasn't really changed in about, 6, 7 decades. They're kind of grandfathered in of Lucky or whatever his name is
Yeah, Lucky
has
the
always
Leprechaun. Yeah.
has always fit not concisely or cleanly inside of the circle to his credit and to their credit. But everybody else, it's just lame. And I'm gonna side eye the Tampa Bay Lightning for having, because on the anniversary of our fucking of our almost anniversary of our first podcast year over year, gotta take a low blow and hopefully shoot some fucking stray bullets at the Tampa Bay Lightning for not only having one of the worst having the blandest uniform set in the league, but also having objectively the shittiest fucking logo. Like, Jesus, you put a fucking Mighty Morphin Power Rangers lightning bolt in a fucking like circle. Ooh, good for you. What is like, like the thing is, like, I look at your hat, Liam, and I could go hunting the Winnipeg Jets right now. But the Winnipeg Jets logo of the 90s was classic but shitty. And the modern logo is sleek and an homage to the city that they play in, and I can respect it in its simplicity. The Tampa Bay Lightning, with their unique colorway and the three different shades of lightning, or three different stroke shades to the, like, asymmetrical lightning bolt on their original logo, well, really their 2007 logo, but even the original logo being asymmetrical in nature and being somewhat similar in shape to, I imagine the region that they play in versus the bland and broad strokey one we have now, without the word Tampa Bay in it, I might also add, like, man, fuck the Tampa Bay Lightning's entire aesthetic.
Yeah. Kind of hits home though, like with a lot of those like high school sports unis where it's like, I swear to God, it's always like the same kind of generic blue and white setups too.
Yeah, like the Tampa Bay Lightning are just the Methuen Rangers, but at the NHL level.
Yeah, I've made that analogy before, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're not. As somebody who's a big fan of prevalent and iconic corporate branding, especially at this level, like, I look at the Seattle Kraken, who said, "How much blue can you fit into an aesthetic?" And they said, "We're going to do this with one color, and we're going to do it with 5 different shades, and we're going to throw in a splash of red." And they gave us something we've really never seen before in the sport. And really, not, like, the closest similarities, the Seattle Seahawks when they did their early 2010s rebrand with their multiple shades of blue and Arctic gray instead of opting for a white. Which, that's something I've really, really, really got to give a shitload of credit to the PWHL Montreal in their branding. I can't believe, and no, I can believe it. I hate that the NHL is still stuck in their old boys club of why the fuck every road uni is white, or in like the even the old school ways when home jerseys were white. Like, you have so many shades of white and pale grays and pale yellows that teams could fucking leverage effectively to give us some degree of contrast, especially since we're playing on a white fucking playing surface. Like, PWHL Montreal with that off-white road uni, like, it's. I hope they carry that into next year with whatever the rebrand is color-wise, just so I can sit here and say PWHL has the best road sweater in professional hockey in North America and be able to stand on my bullshit with it. Because right now it's not there with the like, it's better than the Rangers comparable road jersey with New York. With jerseys that use the diagonal striping for the road, it's definitely the best professional road. And I mean, hell, PWHL is doing something right because Noah Khan looked much better in the PWHL Montreal sweater than he did in the Habs sweater, for whatever that's worth.
Yep.
It's a better shade of red. Stay mad, Habs fans.
It's actually remarkable on the Seattle topic how, like, friggin' like, the Mariners, Kraken, and Seahawks all go for, like, similar colorway patterns and such, and yet it doesn't feel redundant. To be honest, like, in contrast with, like, it and, like, how the Pirates, Steelers, and Pens all have, like, that same aesthetic, and it doesn't feel like anywhere near as contrasting because there isn't quite the same innovation with it.
Yeah, I think a big value in that is also, like, I think it is kind of a reflection of the cities they play in, where, Pittsburgh being old-timey blue-collar to its core, and Seattle really taking pride in being, really, truly the Western Metro's most innovative city in terms of, like, not necessarily trying to compete with Silicon Valley and the tech innovation, but, like, Seattle and their logistics and overall, like, tech planning. It really is amazingly reflective in their sports teams, the culture of the city and its surrounding area, of just variety, etc.
Yeah, as like a broader cultural reflective point, like I think it's kind of indicative of like the city of Pittsburgh kind of has to decide culturally what it actually is, because like they pride themselves on their blue collar identity now, even though they've like closed down every place that actually provides blue collar jobs. So it's like, are you gentrifying or not?
They're getting so when I was fishing retail or real estate in the Pittsburgh area when I was considering moving down that way due to cost of life and living. I mean, hell, man, there's some properties in downtown Pittsburgh that are in foreclosure for $45,000, and man, they're either going to gentrify or we're going to see, yeah. I don't have a word for it because Pittsburgh be Pittsburgh. I will say the Steelers and the Penguins, and it's really unique now that with the rise of Paul Scanes, and I'm probably butchering his last name, and I don't really care because we're on baseball for the second week in a row. It's really nice seeing how most Pittsburgh sports fans aren't actually like indigenous to the Pennsylvania area. Like most of the Steelers fan base is located, in my experience, in like Connecticut, the Virginias, etc. And Penguins fans are conceivably the same areas, or in our case, a lot of Penguins fans in the Connecticut, Massachusetts, New Hampshire area. Like, and with Mr. Livy Dunn, like Pirates fans are starting to crop up in the deep South and places like Louisiana. So it's really unique how these teams are so culturally branded to one another, and their strong blue-collar Pittsburgh identity, yet most of their overarching fan bases don't even exist in the fucking state they play in.
Especially with it being a small metro area population-wise. But I'm going to tell you, just because you're going to be like, why? And laugh at it, his last name is actually pronounced Skins.
Yeah, no, I believe that. See, I didn't do my due diligence to actually research where he's from. So I went him being from California originally. Yeah, Skins makes sense. See, I honestly pronounced that with the bias that he was the like northeast coast guy. Because if he was from Connecticut, it's probably Skanes, and if it's from Rhode Island, Massachusetts, it's Scans. But West Coast or Deep South, definitely Skins is on brand.
I love how he just started off as an Air Force Academy cadet playing baseball. So he transferred to LSU.
He's definitely the most interesting, if one of the most interesting stories of sports this summer. His rise has been pretty impressive, and obviously, in my culture, Noah Lyles has been a big story. Gotta love whenever a weeb dominates in any athletic field of competition. Shout out to Exodia, the Forbidden One wielder, picking up an Olympic gold medal there.
Yeah, for real. You know what? We talked about this and like talking about the perspective, like sort of City Connect / City Edition program, for like fanatics to, have a chance to sort of like make some sort of statement for the leagues to get innovative. It, like, they can't, like reverse retro work for Reebok. And I agree with our boy Noah Kaplan's take. Like they couldn't do it again because teams were running out of ideas. But if they went like the colorful route, like I think you know there is some real strong possibility there that it would probably be pretty lucrative. It's probably beneficial even from a PR standpoint for fanatics as they like try to prove to people that they're capable of actually doing good things. Uh, I would love to see Pitt. Like obviously they've done it as like a throwback a few times, like just do some sort of play off of the old school powder blue to make some sort of statement there. I think that would be good, especially if they make some sort of like alteration that makes it pop while catering to the hometown fan base as well.
One team I think about a lot based on the history, and when I say history, I mean down to its founding. One city connect that I would love at the NHL is if at some point the Toronto Maple Leafs gave us kind of a mock-up, smash-up blend of the Azzurri Italian national soccer unis with the Toronto logo format, since most people don't realize Toronto was an Italian settlement in Ontario and still has very strong Italian heritage to this day. Like I would fucking love an Italian national team in Inspode Leafs jersey. Like, it doesn't have to be obvious and like on the head, but a modern sleeve, like the clean Italian style crest with that slightly darker shade of, or actually in this case, the gradient field blue that Italy uses historically, with some of the white shoulder trim with a not as jagged leaf. I could fucking see it, or even the leaf inside of like a Euro football style emblem. I think there's room for the Leafs to do something really fucking sick in that direction if that ever, it feels so fucking bizarrely patronizing to me that the Toronto St. Pats have the Irish fucking like, it doesn't feel good knowing that they pander to only one part of the historic immigrants that came into that city over the last 150 years and fully ignored the original. That'd be like fucking Boston ignoring its fucking British heritage of immigrants by just deciding, I don't know. I didn't know where I was going with that. Just feels real weird that Toronto, a city that's clearly, literally named after a different Italian city, panders to its Irish-Canadian demographic.
The only thing I can think there is like, like obviously Boston, like it's settlement history, but at the same time, just like Philadelphia, it's got that extended history of having been like a key piece in like a procuring independence as well. So kind of like a weird, like delicate balancing act sort of thing there.
Yeah. I'm not asking to see a Union Jack on a Bruins sweater for what it's worth.
I would like to see where they would take that, though. It'd be intriguing.
I feel like it'd also be like homage to Byron Defoe.
Right.
I mean, the only team that's kind of already failed this challenge is obviously Anaheim, as they are unbelievably rooted in their Dutch heritage. But man, could you see the New York Rangers pulling up in fucking orange? God. I think both Rangers fans and Flyers fans would have to consider sticking their eyes with a poker. Like, the Islanders are already there. Kudos to them. I mean, to be fair, they did play in the checks notes Nassau Coliseum, which is literally, like, you can't get much more Dutch than that. But seeing the Rangers potentially also pay some homage to the long-standing Dutch heritage in the New York area would be... I'd be clever to see if they could find a way to do it without putting any orange on their uniform. But I mean, New York has so much New York has so much history and so much personality as a city and state that, like, you almost feel like the New York Knicks, and I haven't looked at their City Connects, but I'm just assuming because it's the New York Knicks, they're underwhelming. Gotta do some research so I can make an informed opinion on this instead of oh wow, these are literally the New York Islanders' third jerseys from all those years ago that made me want to fucking jump off a roof. Wow. Yeah, point stated, and I am defending.
In very
I am defending this.
very classic NYC fashion, they had that city edition where they paid homage to the FDNY. Like, of course, like you just are out there like rocking like the fucking like fire department emblem on the front of the jersey. Like, yeah, that sounds about right. To be fair, Boston would probably pull some shit like that as well. Like the Bruins, that just has Boston Bruins written all over it.
Yeah. You know, though, knowing the Boston Bruins, man, they'd have a black and yellow jersey, and the only difference on the Bruins City Connect is they'd have the thin blue stripe across the middle.
Oh,
Just the spoked B, but the blue just goes all the way around, like it's the Habs mixed with the Bruins.
yeah, I, there is like a pretty strong emphasis on the firefighter culture amongst like the blue collar people in this metro area. To be fair, and like Dennis Leary used to, and might even still, or has recently, like for a long time, hosted those firefighter benefit games between celebs and Bruins alumni, to where it doesn't seem implausible that they would go an official route with that partnership. Rescue Me was a damn good TV drama, I have to say.
You know, for Damien's nostalgia right now, I like the fact that I was able to hit a quick Google of the Dennis Leary celebrity hat trick from 2004, man. And there's nothing weirder than going into the ESPN archives and seeing the title from October 2004 of Leary hosts charity game at Fleet Center.
Yep.
That's a big nostalgia pander.
I'm trying to remember if that was one of the ones where Michael J. Fox was on the roster, because he was still at the point where he was, physically capable of participating in those sort of things. Because I did go to one where he played. I was like, oh, wow, that's fucking cool as shit.
I think we might have all been at the same game.
Probably.
Darren Pang splitting reps with Chad Smith in goal. Man, that's a weird fucking sentence to utter out loud. You know, speaking of the Bruins, you know what player I realized isn't in the Bader model, and I was trying to use it for a comparison today as I worked on my Minnesota Wild article? Gord Kluzak. And it's, how many times is Gord Kluzak a relevant player that you'd actually care about his developmental trajectory for? And it just so happens I was thinking from a high level, and I didn't go down this route in the article, so this is an apology to our readers. You will be disappointed I didn't really go down the rabbit hole on this of draft-eligible players that had some pretty substantial knee injuries. Really trying to compare a guy like Kluzak to a guy like Aaron Kiviharju. Just to point out how fucking stupid NHL teams are in modern sports for passing on a guy with a major injury like in his developmental years. For example, to make my point here of why I think him, like, if you're so concerned about Kiviharju's injury, like he's still a third, maybe late second round talent. Like, you look at a guy like Joe Thomas for the Cleveland Browns, who tore an ACL in his junior year of college. You look at a guy like Frank Gore for the San Francisco 49ers, who tore an ACL in his freshman year of college. And then you look at Micah Crabtree, also a top 10 NFL draft pick, who tore his ACL literally towards the end of his senior season in his D0 year for football. And with literally none of those guys had injury-plagued careers. Like, Frank Gore, like, for fuck's sake, man, Joe Thomas didn't miss a snap for, 10, 11 consecutive years coming off of that knee injury. Like, Frank Gore, played until he was almost 36, I think, and only really had no major knee-based, like, it's amazing with modern medicine how we're still afraid of a guy coming off of a major injury at age 18, like Adrian Peterson didn't rush for 2,000 yards off of a torn ACL. And yes, I'm comparing two different sports here. John Tavares' career didn't fall off a cliff after he tore his ACL. Steven Stamkos objectively got better at hockey after tearing his ACL. How the fuck are we looking at a torn ACL as a debilitating career, like, altering injury for a player with modern medicine? Like,
Yeah.
tell me about how a torn ACL turned Tom Brady into a fucking scrub.
Well, look at Nick Chubb. He's another one who tore his ACL in college, and I mean, obviously he tore it again last year. But I mean,
That's a bad example
how's Nick Chubb a bad example though? He's already squatting back
because
at
he just tore his
5'8".
ACL again.
He
He
did,
hasn't
but like
recovered from the injury yet. That's a bad example.
because he tore his ACL in college, he looked phenomenal in the NFL for what, his first 5 seasons, 6 seasons in the NFL. Like, and even with the ACL injury last season, it wasn't even like, oh, hey, bro, his ACL gave out. I mean, if your foot gets like stuck while you're cutting in turf and then a dude blows out your fucking side of the knee with your helmet, like, that's not the ACL, my guy. And he's fine. He's already squatting 585. He will be back, okay?
Just like Aaron Kivihara, you will be back.
I need you to know that the current, in its current state, Gord Kluzak's Wikipedia article is using very interesting support for its case about his draft plus status or perceived such. The very last paragraph of his of the playing career section said the injury plague lost potential led to professional wrestling news site Zach and NHL draft plus in the 2015 opinion piece. And the referred link is indeed an article from the Sportster, whose trending topics currently include Cody Rhodes, Brock Lesnar, CM Punk, and SummerSlam. That is gold.
And, like, my thought being here, though, like, in 1981-82, a torn ACL,
Oh no.
debilitating to a long-term career prospectus. 23-24, no. It's so fucking weird. Like, just because Gord Kluzak was not the player that he should have been for the Bruins because of injury does not mean every future player will be bad because of a knee injury. I mean, the only crime in Gord Kluzak's entire life is the fact that he works for Goldman Sachs, or at least worked for them at one point. I mean, that's the only thing he's done that's in some degrees criminal. Not literally, of course. I'm not accusing Gord Kluzak of committing white-collar crimes in the 90s. Yet.
I'm trying to find, like, in the editing history, the username of the individual that put that in there, just so I can give them a proper salute, but it's very difficult. But I also was reminded in this process that he was born in Climax, Saskatchewan, which is also a meme in and of itself.
I also love how in his Wikipedia, whoever did that paragraph really needs to point, like, really love to dangle Scott Stevens and Dave Andrewchuk at both having over 1,600 games played directly. Like, man, that is. I am glad. Like, whoever the fuck wrote that paragraph is definitely a hater, and I'm fucking here for it. Like, that is some big, like. There were 4 guys who were drafted right after him that played at least 1,100 NHL games.
Brian Titfucker Bellows amongst them.
That's beautiful, man.
Phil Housley.
I mean, hey, at least I'm gonna give Kluzak some credit. He's not a worse NHL coach than Phil Housley. True, he's never coached at the NHL level, but success by not participating is still success when you look at how fucking atrocious Housley did in Buffalo. Like, it's amazing, man. Lindy has a chance to do something real fucking special in Buffalo here. Like, Phil Housley has set the bar from a coaching perspective in that organization so fucking low, and Lindy has a chance to clear that bar in the wrong direction. And I wish I hated the Sabres enough to be genuinely excited about how low this can go.
Yeah. I did see the, I think it was Buffalo News, I think hockey page, writing about, like, Lindy Ruff could be the guy who turns this defense into exceptional. And, I mean, for me, I look at New Jersey, and I'm like, I don't think the coaching really, first of all, I wouldn't say that excellent defense, and I also don't know if that's more of a, like, it's just you had to skill roster. I mean, again, also losing Dougie is pretty bad too, pretty impactful. So,
I look at the Sabres' top 4, and I look at that and say that's one of the best young top 4s in the league. And I look at Lindy Ruff and say, how are you going to ruin this? What are you going to do systematically to turn this into the... You have, in the words of Kill Bill, you have a Hattori Hanzo katana on your blue line. How are you going to turn this into a Faberware kitchen knife? That is the Lindy Ruff effect. You have one of the most offensively prolific top 4s the league has ever seen under the age of 25, 26. And you're somehow going to find a way to make them look like the LA Kings in the offensive zone. Like, here comes Owen Anderson with Henry Gavrikov. Oh, they just chipped it in and chased it. Oh, Bo Byram's the second coming of Joel Edmondson now. Oh, he's getting beat in the corner.
I mean, I think it's just, at this point too, though, like, not to sum up all the sports so, like, blandly, maybe a little disrespectfully, but I feel like it's kind of like this across the board for all Buffalo sports, where it's like every season it's like, dude, this is the coach, he's going to do it, or, and it's like, again, obviously the Bills, it's kind of the same thing. It's like you run the same thing back, but with a different face that you think is going to be like have his best season of his career. And it's like, Buffalo, just don't get your hopes too high.
Hot take. Sean McDermott is the exact type of leader that I think could get the Sabres over the hump.
I mean, honestly, I think you're right. I do agree with that.
So,
because
he could run the 9/11 motivational speech, and it would just light an absolute fire under that dressing room.
Yes, and I'm glad you said it because I was gonna go there anyway. This is where I was taking this. But why I bring this up and why I'm shit canning Phil Housley here is you look, that kind of leadership is what you like. It's so stupid but it's beautiful because you can't, with the exception of Stephon Diggs, you cannot question the core collective unity of the Buffalo Bills team under McDermott in his bizarre 9/11 collaboration worship. That team is galvanized, though. And the problem when I specifically look at the 2018 Buffalo Sabres team, every man was playing for himself, and there really was, like, the end of the Eichel era, and even this modern era, like, they need a coach who's actually going to be an unhinged lunatic and galvanize them as one chaotic, bizarre force. I mean, Jordan Poyer, Micah Hyde, and all those guys on the Buffalo defense, questionable human beings, man. And they all came together. And that's what the fucking Sabres need. I'll see myself out.
Oh man, that might legitimately be a top 5 moment on this pod.
I mean,
I'm proud of us. We got through that without saying anything offensive.
Yeah.
I mean, but definitely too, though. I mean, like, I feel like obviously, again, like, you look at Phil Housley as also being like one of the best American defensemen of all time. So it's like one of those things where you kind of hope that, like, for Buffalo, again, following, again, that entire thing, as like maybe you just need this great American head coach who's going to like. Which is why I don't know. Like, obviously, I always look back at the Miracle on Ice because, I mean, again, you look at a coach who got a team who just a bunch of young, rowdy players who had the heated rivalries from college matchups and stuff and past tourneys, where it's like, I feel like, yeah, I mean, obviously, again, you're not going to probably find another Herb Brooks, but, like, definitely that direction.
Man, smoke that Herb Brooks. Yeah, I mean, you kind of spelled it out in your opening thing about why the Phil Housley thing failed. I mean, it's never been a secret that high-end NHL players, for the most part, have absolutely struggled to coach at the NHL level. The expectation that Phil Housley would have been any different is... Like, Martin St. Louis has been to some degree an exception, but the Canadiens also don't actually have any success to show as a unit for his like, there's been individual success in players who on a developmental level have absolutely fucking blossomed under him. But notwithstanding, the team is still fucking bad. The team is still losing quite frequently, like, which really paints me in the thought of if St. Louis does not get Montreal close to a playoffs, but it's clear and obvious that he's probably better suited in either an assistant coaching or in a developmental director role, which is not a defamation of any of his work at all. But I mean, it's potentially becoming clear that trope is going to stand true to another Hall of Fame NHL player behind the bench. See, the thing with Marc Savard is the reason he might still be a great head coach in the NHL is because he has enough brain damage that I think he doesn't remember enough of his playing days that it might not carry over to his work behind the bench. And we'll move that into the developmental corner for Liam, because I really thought Damien was going to have a witty comeback or response for that, and he let me down like always.
Honestly, all I could think of was, like, just getting PTSD if Matt Cook went into coaching and somehow, like, ended up being on the other side of the glass, but that's all I could think of.
Yeah, so the World Junior Showcase, Summer Showcase wrapped up yesterday with a finale which pitted the U.S. against Canada. It was really about as good as a cap-off as you could possibly get, considering, the teams played each other close and competitively and things. There were a lot of, like, impressive plays that didn't quite end in a finish, just a lot of other things. But it yielded the USA winning 5-4 in the shootout with goal that capped it off being scored by Brody Zemer. Flow Hockey made a point to emphasize the individual performances of, amongst others, Carson Bjarnason in net with his relief stint for Canada, Brent Svoboda, let's see, Berkeley Catton, Cole Iserman, and Callum Ritchie, amongst other names of note. Meanwhile, the final rosters have been determined for the Linka Gretzky Cup, with the tournament starting tomorrow. Some notable names on the roster for Canada include Gavin McKenna, who's expected to be their effective talisman. Really remarkable statement about his prowess, even as someone who is entering his D-1 year, not even his DY. But of course, we know exactly where he stands at this point and what he's capable of, even now. Of course, Cole Resney actually did end up making the cut for the final roster, so many congratulations to him. He's had good chemistry with some elite players, including McKenna at previous tournaments, so we know what he can do in terms of productivity when his supporting cast is superior to the one that he has in Victoria. Caleb Denoyer, let's see, who else we got? Jake O'Brien, Alex Huang, Cameron Reed. The goaltender tandem will be Chaka Ivankovic and Lucas Beckman of Brampton in the OHL, and Bay Como of the Q, respectively. And they will be placed in Group A alongside Switzerland, Slovakia, and Sweden, whereas USA will be Group B with Czechia, Germany, and Finland. The standard practice, as was pointed out by SB Nation blog, centered on the New Jersey Devils for the Linka Gretzky by USA, has typically been pick guys outside of the USNCDP to give someone else a chance to represent a tournament. So some of those players include Nicholas Sikora, let's see, Omaha USHL. Let's see. Local boy Teddy Muttrand of Norwell, Massachusetts, and St. Sebastian's Schools was placed on the final roster as well. Travis Hayes of the Sault Ste. Greyhounds in the OHL. Let's see, Blake Fiddler from the Edmonton Oil Kings in the WHL. Let's see, Carter Murphy from the Youngstown Phantoms in the USHL. Tommy Blale, Albany Academy. Let's see, Carter Casey, Charles Menard, and Ryan Cameron of Grand Rapids High School, Culver Academy, and Long Island, and the NE Pack were the selected goaltenders for this squad. So it's kind of, you can most likely anticipate that this is a similar approach to what we often see from USA Hockey at World Championships, to get guys competitive reps in and showcase themselves, take dead steps up into that environment. And you know, there's a utility, there's like a utilitarian benefit to that, even if it doesn't necessarily translate into a tournament win. So it should be interesting to see what that group does. Meanwhile, in CHL news, the Episode recently announced their new head coach in the form of Hamilton. He comes having just recently served as the Calgary Hitmen head coach, where he placed a record, where he earned a record of 165, 152, and 40. A couple of playoff berths in there. Good finish in the pandemic short seasons that didn't have a playoffs. He is Also got a pretty good record in the AJHL, where you're coach of the year three different times. In fact, with two different organizations. So it should be interesting. We still don't have a resolution to the Lyndon DuPont quagmire yet, for whatever reason. So we'll see whenever that actually does get wrapped up. I'm sure it'll be finalized before the year actually starts. But we have been waiting on even so much as an update, and it hasn't happened yet. So we'll see.
Ah, yeah. It do be like that.
I feel like there's never been such a long standoff of sorts between like a player's like an exceptional status player's like uh, representation and like this club that I can think of, because like there haven't been a lot of instances. There hasn't been like a lot of drama or draw out. Like you kind of just knew the kid was going to be on the roster on day one. But at least we know that there's been some forward movement and it hasn't like been stalled out. There might have actually been more progress in the Lyndon DuPont talks than in the Jeremy Swayman negotiations. Like I feel like that's just been at an absolute stalemate for a long fucking time.
Yeah.
I don't even know. Like it's funny how like the I get the underlying motivation of why those parties didn't go to arbitration, because they wanted to operate in good faith, and they also did it as a favor to Jeremy, because like he chose it, but he like last summer, but he also determined like this is something I never want to go through again. But things are operating so inefficiently that it just seems to be like you're like I don't know what's going on in that room. The most I know about what's been happening, I've learned from Ty Anderson, basically. But like,
Yep.
it feels like you're pretty much being raked over the coals, and like, as about as bad of a manner at this point.
I am really interested what kind of resolution they're going to hit on this. Because now it's starting to get to a point where Swayman might not be a Bruin at training camp. And that's not ideal when your team is very flawed and is incredibly reliant on the fact that you need an exceptional goaltender to be good.
I mean, hey, they're poor Pizarro. I just said for the reaction.
Yeah, I figured. Man, what an hell! Like I feel like I've almost said enough about that, but downgrade that was.
You know, it's kind of like, without spoiling too much of my Kings recap, I mean, man, going from Linus Ullmark to Jonas Korpisalo, and going from David Riddick to David Riddick, feels like about equal downgrade vibes. No, Damien, I didn't fuck that up. The Kings went from David Riddick to David Riddick as their backup.
I know.
Like, I keep deep sighing at that because I can't really fucking, like, to be fair to David Riddick, in his 24 starts last year, he was completely fine. But you think about the Los Angeles Kings going into the season this year, with two guys who collectively started 63 games and had a collective GSAA of about 0. But yet you let fucking Cam Talbot, like, go to Detroit, where he's obviously going to be the backup, really raises a bunch of fucking questions about why the fuck you kept Riddick instead of not offering a salary to, Cam Talbot to be your 1A, 1B with Kemper. Like, I can overlook all of the other bullshit stupidity and shenanigans from the Kings, but man, you're telling me you couldn't afford to pay Cam Talbot $2.5 million a year to back up Darcy Kemper. If you can't even afford to spend $2.5 million on a legitimately good backup goalie and you fancy yourselves a Stanley Cup contender, you're a fucking idiot.
I mean, I would want to say maybe age, but that literally wouldn't make any sense considering is Talbot what, 35, 36? I think.
Talbot's 36, 37.
So,
Riddick's
but
31.
already 34, so it's just, yeah, I mean, Riddick isn't super young, but I don't know. I mean, because I feel like Talbot played the majority of the games last season and was pretty consistent, so I don't know.
Yeah, man, if you cannot afford to pay $2.5 million for a good backup goaltender in the National Hockey League, you're not as good of a hockey team as you think you are. Like, you're telling me this is a team that fancies themselves a Stanley Cup contender, and their backup goalie is David Riddick on a $1 million deal. Even, yeah, the same can be said for the Edmonton Oilers, but 32-year-old Calvin Pickard and Stu Skinner, this wasn't a conscious decision. This wasn't and it's not I would take Pickard over David Riddick. It's not, and even knowing that I don't think, sure, buying out Jack Campbell was a little strange in dealing, that is what it, but there is no Stanley Cup contender, including the Boston Bruins, currently rostering a worse backup goalie than the LA Kings. Korpisalo fucking is not that good, but he's still better than David Riddick. And GSAA was lower than Riddick. Yeah, Riddick played fucking 24 games against inferior quality competition behind the neutral zone trap. I mean, fucking Jack Campbell could have done that. Fuck, James Reimer could have done that.
Damn. Woo, shots fired.
I don't know, man. It's crazy. What would a team if only the Kings had access to a veteran goalie like Jonathan Quick? It's amazing how the Rangers and the Golden Knights find guys like that, on the side of the highway at the trade deadline. My goal, Liam, if you haven't figured out, is to get doxxed by one of their fans by the end of the season.
It's a good aspiration. I don't know why their fans just continuously go to bat for a bright trust that's been self-sabotaging for so long. They just, it almost feels like Kings fans have Stockholm syndrome at this point. As popular as the Philadelphia FO can be, even when they talking about the current regime, even when they make misguided decisions, I feel like there's a greater movement of resistance towards when Danny Briere messes up to the continuous fuck ups of Bergevin and Robitaille.
I really enjoyed last year being on X with with Kings fans, really arguing how stupid the Dubois trade was and how keeping Mikey Anderson over Sean Durzi was one of the dumbest managerial decisions I've ever seen, and just being met with the resistance. And a year later, Anderson's been regressing every year as he's gotten more minutes, and Durzi's improved every year as he's gotten more minutes and less sheltered minutes at that. And Jersey's defensive game is fucking like it's not great, but it's not bad. He's an average defender and an exceptional offensive defenseman. And like Anderson is sure he's a good DFD, but again, the motherfucker offers like the guy isn't any better than Yanni Hakanpää in the offensive zone more often than not. So like, and you know like. It's fucking amazing how their fan base will go to bat for the decisions they've made. Like, people being excited about them signing Joel 1-year wonder 4 years ago, Edmondson. Like, it's remarkable how, like, Stockholm Syndrome, I think, is the right statement at this point, Liam. Like, oh yeah, we won 2 cups. These guys, like, you're excited. You're paying fucking Warren Fogle $3.5 million a year to have the same level of productivity that Dubois had last year. Like
Yeah. Refer back to my previous monologue. Ring culture is overrated in this this current Kings regime had nothing to do with those cups.
like you signed the guy who's a career bottom 6 winger who had the best year of his career, occasionally playing with Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl, and Ryan Nugent-Hopkins. And just with that deployment, with power play opportunities, with 3 of the top 60 forwards in the National Hockey League, including 50-plus goal scorer Zach Hyman, this man had 41 points. Pierre-Luc Dubois, playing on a Kings team, had 41 points. Upgrades, yeah. People, upgrades.
Nice.
You know, and that amazing allusion to the film Robots, which has aged much better than many things that came out the same year as it did. I will roll us into The Big Finish, which the movie Robots had one of the biggest and most confusing finishes that I can recall.
So, I want to give a lot of appreciation, respect, congratulations, etc. to insider Anthony DeMarco, who has now left his gig at Fourth Period Media for a job at Daily Faceoff with Frank Saravalli and the rest of the staff. Really giving an opportunity to a guy who's been absolutely terrific at getting the best and most accurate scoops, like at a higher clip than so many other people of his profession, has maybe missed the mark once or twice, but shown accountability for it. And just been like always the classiest guy. Been very helpful to Philadelphia Flyers fans, especially. He might be Montreal based, but he's basically become an honorary Philadelphian at this point. So congratulations, Anthony, on the new gig. You definitely deserve it.
That's awesome. I think for this week, I'll just go with the homer approach. So obviously Pittsburgh, hasn't really been much excitement with prospects over the years. I know we've definitely milked it dry. Talking about how barren Pittsburgh's minor league has been for a while as far as roster depth. Anyway, I'm just really excited. Already getting into kind of a lot of these prospects kind of coming in and getting ready to attempt to make the roster and stuff. I loved a lot of what I heard about from Braden Yeager about his approach this season, as far as his training, getting ready, which again, obviously, Liam, you've been talking about how, giving us highlights and a lot of your introspection with a lot of it. And so I'm really excited just to see how like the whole energy is and excited to see if maybe by the end of the season he gets at least a chance to crack the roster, but I'm excited.
I don't really have a lot. Really just kind of want a different kind of homerism. Once again, loving Boston and New England sports. love the continuous endorsement of the PWHL by New England sports teams, seeing Sidney Bard connecting with Polk, Patriots draft pick at Patriots rookie camp. Once again, showing that the Patriots and the Kraft family acknowledges the PWHL, effectively is the seventh now major sports team in the New England Boston area. Pretty cool to see this area really trying to just continue to bring high level professional sports to the area. Yeah, really love the content. NWSL Boston being the sixth, obviously, with the Revs being the fifth, and now PWHL Boston, who will yet to be named later this season, is probably number 7 officially.
Remember when professional lacrosse was a big deal around here somewhat? Those were good times.
I'd love to see pro lax get, professional lacrosse, and, I really would like, and it's never going to happen because of the footprint of the national, but man, I'd really like professional lacrosse and professional rugby to get some degree of mainstream success in this area. And I know you're probably maybe itching for that on the rugby more than I am, but it'd be nice to see. Maybe nice to see.
Yeah. This it feels like with rugby, it's been very similar to like providing competitor leagues where it's just like there's like multiple attempts that something logistically is wrong, and so it doesn't end up sticking. But maybe MLR will buck the trend there. It seems to be doing pretty well. So we'll see about that. Yeah, thank you for everyone. Thank you to everyone who tuned in. Thank you to everyone who listens to Spotify in the future. We're still doing all right, riffing on each other and finding things to talk about. By next episode, because the tournament will be taking place over the next 5 days. So we'll have the Hlinka Gretzky already wrapped up, know who the winner is, know what the takeaways are about those upcoming eligibility players and what statements they made. A lot of players participated in it in their DY or just prior to rather. It ends up making a difference for them, so it should be interesting. Good reflection points to take away there. So thank you to everyone who tuned in. Thank you to everyone who listened on Spotify. We'll see you again next week. Take care. Have a good night, everybody.